evening and welcome. And thank you for joining us for making our evening prayer beautiful and inspiring. When a number of us gather together and join our voices and our hearts together, then we feel that the divine presence really becomes strong and manifests and gives us joy and peace, which is really the one thing that is worth having in this world. This joy and peace. You can have all the money in the world and all the power in the world, but if you don't have joy and peace, what avail is it? What use is it? And actually people are chasing after money and power in order to get that peace, when tragically, when actually the peace is to be found right here, right now, in the divine. So our undertaking tonight, I've called it Upanishadic Meditation. And that means, well, let's back up just a little. Upanishads. What are the Upanishads? They are really the fundamental scriptures of Vedanta. They are the part of the Vedas, the ancient repository of truth discovered by the seers. We call our teachers in Vedanta, the ancient teachers, as seers. Why? Because they directly experience the truth. They directly experience the reality, that infinite reality called Brahman, and discovered this reality lies behind everything and is the very basis of their own being. And then they recorded their experiences in beautiful poetic Sanskrit language, and this is been recorded and passed down from guru to disciple over the centuries and the millennia, and come to us as the Upanishads, these sacred scriptures, which the very word itself has different meanings, but shad, one meaning is to sit, and Naren is our Sanskrit scholar, so he can tell us that to sit near, the upa plus ni plus shad, to sit near. Why? Because this wisdom was passed down from guru to disciple. The guru will teach the disciple, and the disciple in his turn or her turn will realize the truth, and then will become a teacher in her own right, and again pass it on to the guru parampara, as we talked about last night also. And so the tradition of Vedanta, how do we attain that peace? How do we realize? First, we have to hear about the truth. Shravana, we have to hear about it. Then we have to understand it. We have to think about it. We can raise any objections we have, discuss it, settle our objections, and then that's called manana. And then finally, nididhyasana, we have to meditate. And so that is the idea behind this undertaking tonight. I would call it a class, because what we're going to do is we're going to take a few selected verses from the Upanishads and discuss them a little bit and chant them together, and then we'll have a short period of meditation, maybe 5 minutes of silent meditation on these verses to get a feel for what does it mean to meditate on the Upanishads. And this is how one of Sri Ramakrishna's monk disciples, Swami Turiyananda, advised that we should study the Upanishads. How to study them? Not by reading them, and there's hundreds of verses you can read and memorize. Rather, take one verse, memorize it, live it, breathe it, meditate on it, embody it, realize the truth that it conveys. These verses are very powerful because they are the utterances of realized sages. They contain the seeds of awakening, spiritual awakening in them. They really express the truth. If we can, so meditating on them, we can talk a little more about that after we take up one of these verses. But how do we meditate on them? It's as if we can let our minds go a little bit quiet and let the truth of the verse reveal itself to us. It might be by slowly repeating the words of the verse to ourselves. Once we've really understood that, then we can just sit with that, sit with the truth that it's expressing. So it's a beautiful practice. I couldn't find an Upanishad book in our library, so I put it on this tablet instead. So, and I thought that one of the Upanishads that I really love, it's very short, is the Isha Upanishad, so called after the first word of the first verse, the Isha Vasidam Saram. And let's start with the peace invocation. Each Upanishad starts with a peace invocation, and this one, I think most of us know it, but it's actually profound verse, and we'll chant. I'll chant it first, and if you know it, chant it with me, and then we'll take it up word by word. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, the word that keeps coming back in this one is Purnam. Probably you noticed that. What does Purnam mean? Literally it means full, full or complete. Full. What is full? When nothing more can be added to it. So it can also mean infinite, or it refers here to the absolute, the infinity, the indivisible, the full, the whole. So the first two words are Purnam Ada and Purnam Idam. Ada, that. Idam, this. So it leaves a lot of space for interpretation. That is infinite, this is infinite. Usually it's interpreted as that infinite reality, which we call Brahman, the supreme transcendental reality, is infinite. And this means this phenomenal world, this which we experience, is infinite. I invite you also to add any comments or questions during our discussion, and our resident Sanskrit scholar can correct me. So, Purnamada, that is infinite. Purnamidam, this is infinite. Purnat, from the infinite. Purnam, the infinite, the full, the whole. Udachyate, has come out, has manifested. So, that is infinite, this is infinite, from the full has come the full. Purnasya, Purnam Adaya, Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Avashishyate remains, generally given as remains. So what remains? The Purnam remains. Purnasya, of that whole. Purnam Adaya. Well, this is the part that the scholars really wrangle over. From out of that infinite, this infinite comes, we have that. Then of that whole, the whole has been taken out of it. And yet it remains whole, and yet it remains complete. So this infinite has come from that infinite, yet the infinite remains completely full and not reduced in any way. It expresses how can we understand that which is beyond mind and speech. So it actually expresses a kind of a paradox. The infinite has come out of the infinite, and yet the infinite remains infinite. It remains as it is, unchanged and complete. Swami Prabhupada, the founder of the Vedanta Society in Hollywood, has translated it in a kind of poetic way, not very literally, but it's a nice translation. Filled with Brahman are the things we see, filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is, from Brahman all, yet is he still the same. Oh, peace, peace, peace. So that gives a different way of conceiving of this infinity. And then, of course, the peace chants, the invocations always end with 3 times peace. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Body, speech, and mind, or from the heavens, the sky, the earth, ourselves, our families, all living beings, let peace be everywhere. This peace comes when we realize that this is infinite and that is infinite. This is manifesting that infinitude, and yet there is no diminution of the infinitude, because how can that infinite be reduced in any way? This translation here by Swami Mahayogananda, the invisible is the whole, the visible too is the whole. From the whole, the visible universe of infinite extension has come out. The whole remains the same, even though the infinite universe has come out of it. Om, peace, peace, peace. Is it a little bit that you have a little bit of a clear idea about the meaning of this verse?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's chant it. Look, especially for those of you who don't know it, we'll chant it word by word. So I'll chant one word, and then you follow me with the word. Om Purnamada Purnam idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam eva Avashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Actually, I forgot this particular Shanti mantra. The Shanti it's chanted differently. It's chanted Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, do you have a sense of how we're going to meditate on this particular verse? We'll take, really, it's up to us individually how we're going to try to embody this in silent meditation. But we can take the words, if we know the Sanskrit words. Otherwise, we can take a translation, or just feel the idea of infinitude. infinitude, infinity and infinity coming out of infinity, yet there is no reduction of that infinite. So, are you ready to try? We'll have, let's see, probably 5 minutes. Put a clock where I can see it. Shall we chant it once more? We'll chant it together though. Listen to it. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Swami Vivekananda often reminds us how many infinites can there be. Can there be two infinites? If there are two infinites, then the one would limit the other. And then it wouldn't be infinite after all. So that and this is the final conclusion of the Vedantic sages, actually, not two. All right, let's take up the first verse, the thrilling first verse of the Isha Upanishad. Ishavasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjitha magridha kasya svidhanam. Whatever there is in this world, all that is to be covered by the Lord. This is the first half of the verse. The second half, by this renunciation, support yourself, protect yourself, and do not covet the wealth of others. All right, there's a lot here. We can almost take it in two separate halves. Isha. Isha is with the Lord, with the divine, which is to be covered. Let's turn to Swami Vivekananda, because he takes up this verse in his talk, his lecture, God in Everything. We have to cover everything with the Lord himself, he says. Whatever exists in this universe is to be covered with the Lord. So this is both an experience of the sages and an instruction. They have seen that everything is a manifestation of the divine. And then it becomes an instruction. See it as divine. See everything as covered by the Lord. See everything as enveloped by the divine. Envelop everything. Yes, that's the instruction. How can we look on others? How can we look on this world? As enveloped, as covered with divinity. Whatever in this world, Jagat, this changeful. The Jagat means world, and it also means that which changes, is constantly changing. That's the very nature of this world. It's constantly changing, and yet we are to see the changeless. We are to envelop it with the changeless, to see the changeless shining through it. And this is the instruction for spiritual seekers. See it as what it is. And then the second half talks about renunciation. Tyaktena, by renunciation, by this tena, by this renunciation. What this renunciation? Where did it talk about renunciation? Swami Vivekananda says the renunciation is we have to give up the old way we have of looking at the world. That's the renunciation that's actually required of us. We have to give up seeing this world as a permanently real something out of which we can extract some happiness. We have to see it for what it truly is, manifestation of God. So that he puts it this way. We have to cover everything with the Lord himself. Not by a false sort of optimism, not by blinding our eyes to the evil, but by really seeing God in everything. Thus, we have to give up the world. There's the renunciation. By seeing it as God. When the world is given up, what remains? God. What is meant? You can have your wife. It does not mean that you are to abandon her or your husband, but that you are to see God in the wife. Give up your children. What does that mean? To turn them out of doors as some human brutes do in every country? Certainly not. That is diabolism, not religion. But see God in your children. So in everything. In life, and in death, in happiness, and in misery. The Lord is equally present. The whole world is full of the Lord. Open your eyes and see Him. This is what Vedanta teaches, and what Swami Vivekananda teaches us, and what this verse teaches. That's the power of this verse. Isha vasyam idam sarvam. This entire world should be covered, should be enveloped. Vasyam. Isha, by the Lord, vasyam, covered, idam, this, sarvam, all, complete, whole, yat kincha, whatever there is, jagatyam, in this changeful jagat, changeful world, everything is to be covered with the Lord. And then that's a kind of renunciation. We're giving up the old way of seeing this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, I want that, I don't want this. And see it for what it truly is, divine. That's the renunciation. Munjita, support yourself. And interestingly, do not covet wealth. Because, as I mentioned right at the beginning, what is the true wealth? This is the true wealth, to see the divine in everything. And the few coins that are in somebody's pocket, let them have it. We don't have to covet that. We don't have to. We don't have to. Yes, we have to support our families and provide for our children and have a safe home to stay in. But that's just incidental to what the true wealth, which is spiritual wealth, which is seeing the divine in everything. Let's chant it together. We'll start with word by word. Isha, vasyam, idam, sarvam, yat, kincha, jagatyam, jagat, tena, tyaktena, bhunjita, ma, gridha, kasya, swid, dhanam, isha, vasyam idam, sarvam, yat kincha, jagatyam, jagat, tena, yaktena, bhunjita, magridha, kasya swid, dhanam, isha vasyamidam sarvam, yat kincha jagatyam jagat, tena tyaktena bhunjita, magridha kasya swidhanam, kasya swidhanam. There's another interpretation of the last lines. Whose is wealth? For whose is wealth? Don't covet. For who actually wealth belongs to whom? How can we own anything? Truly own it. Because to own something means it's ours and we keep it. But in this world, everything changes, and we can't hold on to anything ultimately. We have to leave it all. One day or other, that day will come. So, who can truly own anything? It's all the Lord's. Any questions or comments?
Swamiji, I just have a question. Like when you said the first word was the Purnamidam, and this is the same, right? Like it comes from the infinite, so that means Brahman. So in the world is everything, and you see everything in it. Does that mean the same?
Well, the peace chant is the invocation, and then it starts with this instruction. So it does seem to be following beautifully from the peace chant.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's a good insight.
Maybe the opportunity could also come from the wish to enjoy, so renounce and enjoy.
Renounce and enjoy. Beautiful. Yes, that's the true, and we can taste the true enjoyment when we let go. What's the example somebody gives of the, there's a painting being auctioned, and it's a famous painting by Vincent van Gogh. And there's the owner of the painting, he wants to get a really good price for it. And there are bidders who want this, big art collectors who have set aside perhaps millions of dollars to try to get this painting. And there's going to be a bidding war. And the auctioneer is really excited. He wants to bid up the price as high as it will go. And the press is also there, and they're really anxious to see how much it's going to go for, and we'll write a great story on this. And we want to be the one to break the news to the world of how much it's sold for. And there's also someone who's just there, who's come to see the painting, and just have a good look at the painting and enjoy it. Now, who there is actually enjoying? The only one who's actually enjoying is the one who didn't come with any. He has no desire to buy the painting. He doesn't have any desire to sell the painting or anything else. Just want to see the beautiful painting and enjoy it. So by renunciation, we truly enjoy it. When we give up seeking, when we give up trying to extract happiness from the world, and realize that actually happiness comes from within, then we can, paradoxically, then we can enjoy the world. Then we enjoy it as a show, as a play.
Swamiji, but it's really very hard to find that motivation to keep doing the work, like day after day. Especially as they say, the pursuit of happiness, when like the definition of that is changed. It's very hard. Like how do you...
Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Huh? So...
Like how do you continuously motivate every day when the whole idea is everything is coming from the infinite, will go in infinite.
Yes, when you come to that point, then you retire to the Himalayas and meditate. Are you ready to do that?
No.
But you still have your kids to raise.
Right. So
You still have to feed your
so what's the
children
balance?
and teach them.
Why we're doing this? Like what's the balance? Like how do we?
Why are we doing it? Well, you tell me why are we doing it. Play with the Lord. Let it be, play with the Divine Mother. Let it be mother's play. Cover everything with the Lord. Then you see, do you see your daughter crying because she's hungry? Or do you see Divine Mother crying because she's hungry? Then you feed the mother. If we can do what Swamiji says here, see God in your children. See God in your husband. Serve God. Let it all be for God, but know that God dwells in your children and in your husband and in your colleagues at work and in your fellow devotees at the Vedanta Center and in the criminal who's trying to cheat you.
God.
Yes, that's also God.
Tough job.
Those scammers who call you and try to fool you into thinking that try to fool us that our social security account has been compromised. And I had I had 2 talks with these guys. When they call, I always say press 1 to talk to an agent. So I press 1, and someone comes on and says, Social Security Administration, how may I help you? I said, yes, you can help me. please look deep within your heart and consider whether this is the right line of work for you to be cheating people like this. That's what I ask them. And then most of the time they hang up. But now and then they talk to, and twice I had 10-minute conversations with people, both from India, and they both said no, like they defended their actions by saying they're scamming the rich and giving to the poor.
Oh.
That was their particular, both of these, they had a slightly different take, but both. But I was not able to convince them that they should give up this work.
It's
But
very interesting you mentioned that, because the same thing happened and Ashish gave the same answer. And he tried to, that happened twice too. And I think the second time that person just hung up and said, yeah, I'm sorry, I won't call again.
Okay.
Yeah, he said the exact same thing.
Interesting. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So that's a nice. That person also is an embodiment of God. God dwells within them also. That's also God we're talking to. So rather than curse and shout and like that, try to help them. That's actually what I was trying to do. Try to help them see the error of their ways. They'll regret it later. All right. So, now we're going to meditate on this verse. Let's see, did Swami say anything more about it? All right, here's a little more. We all understand that desires are wrong. But what is meant by giving up desires? How could life go on? There's a question. It would be the same suicidal advice, killing the desire and the man too. The solution is this: not that you should not have property, not that you should not have things which are necessary, and things which are even luxuries. Have all that you want, and even more. Only know the truth and realize it. Wealth does not belong to anybody. Have no idea of proprietorship, possessorship. You are nobody, nor am I, nor anyone else. All belongs to the Lord. All belongs to the Lord. Because the opening verse told us to put the Lord in everything. God is in the wealth that you enjoy. He is in the desire that rises in your mind. He is in the things you buy to satisfy your desire. He is in your beautiful attire, in your beautiful ornaments. This is the line of thought. All will be metamorphosed as soon as you begin to see things in that light. If you put God in your every movement, in your conversation, in your form, in everything, the whole scene changes, and the world, instead of appearing as one of woe and misery, will become a heaven. Okay, this is the secret. It's so simple. Maybe difficult to put it into practice, but actually it's very simple. Can we see God in everything? Can we cover this entire universe and this entire changeful universe with the Lord? Yes, it can be done. And then this world of misery and pain becomes a world of joy. Because that's the source of joy within us and within everything, the divine.
Maharaj, that's why Hindus see God, Lakshmi. Lakshmi as God.
All right, let's meditate on the verse. All right, shall we chant it once more?
Yes.
Om Ishavasya sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagata tena tyaktena vunjitha magridha kasya svidhanam. Om Ishavasya sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagata tena tyaktena vunjitha magridha kasya svidhanam. think that's the right interpretation. Renounce and enjoy.
Yeah.
Yes, that's beautiful. I thought we would do more verses, and so far we've already come to 8:20. Let's take up one more verse in this Upanishad. I'm going to skip a little bit to one of the really okay. This is verse number 6. I can't quite remember the melody is supposed to be chanted in. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyevanupashyati sarvabhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsati. Alright, this verse is describing the realization of a sage who sees all beings, sarvani bhutani, all beings, where? Atmani, in the self. In the self, his or her own self, which is the self. For the illumined soul, there is only the one self. And in that self, all beings. Yastu, who, the person who sees sarvani bhutani atmani eva, alone, anupashyati, sees, perceives directly. The person who perceives directly all beings, from Brahma down to a blade of grass. All the people, all the animals, all beings in that infinite consciousness, which is my own true self. Well, I can see all beings in that. And sarva bhuteshu, in all beings, cha, and atmanam, seeing that self in all beings, whatever being I see, whatever being I perceive the self there, my own self there. I see myself in you, and I see you in myself, with a self with a capital S, in the Atman. Tata, from that, na vijugupsate. Vijugupsate can mean that person cannot hate or reject anyone. If I see you in me and I see me, my true self in you, how can I possibly hate you? How can I hate anyone? Rather, the universal love, then we experience universal love. Does it make sense? So let's chant it. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmani eva anupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate yastu sarvani bhutani atmani evanupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyevanupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate Yastu sarvani bhutanyatmanyevamupashyati. Yastu sarvani bhutanyatmanyevamupashyati. Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate. Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate. Questions, comments?
No danger be from me and awkwardly as those that dwell on high.
A little louder.
From me no danger be to walk that lives. Those you dwell on high and those that lowly creep. I am the self and all.
Good. From the Song of the Sannyasin, Swami Vivekananda, could you hear that? From me no danger be to aught that lives. In those that dwell on high, in those that lowly creep, I am the self in all. That idea that I think of myself ordinarily, and we think of ourselves as these limited beings with a body and a mind, but our true self is the self of all beings. In those that dwell on high, in those that lowly creep, I am the self in all. So my true self is in every being, including the little creeping worms and the yellow jackets and everything else. All right. So let's see how, on the one hand, this verse beautifully complements the first verse we took up. Everything is to be covered with the Lord. And now it takes the Vedantic approach of the true self. My true self, infinite consciousness, is found within all beings, and I find all beings within my true self. I am in all, and all is within me. So we'll have last meditation, 5 minutes, silent meditation on this verse. I was going to say that I find this verse particularly powerful when I think over, repeat them very slowly in Sanskrit, in the original Sanskrit. And then I thought, well, that's not really fair. Let me try repeating it slowly in English. And the same power is there in the English translation. So the meaning of these verses is profound. And perhaps we got a taste tonight a little bit of what this third stage of Vedantic inquiry is like. We start with Shravana, we hear the truth. Then we do Manana, we discuss it, we think about it. And we didn't do too much of that, but we did a little discussion and seeing what Swami Vivekananda has to say about it. And then we do Nididhyasana, we meditate on the truth embodied in this verse and see how it can manifest in our lives and bring us true peace and joy. So, thank you for joining me and giving me this opportunity to share my this joyous practice of taking just one verse, or in our case we took 3 verses tonight. The peace chant and the first verse and the 6th verse of Isha Upanishad, and this practice. So,
Swamiji, what book can see the explanation in Vivekananda's the
in
Upanishad?
Swami Vivekananda, it's in Jnana Yoga, or volume 2 of the complete works.
Okay.
And the lecture is called God in Everything.
Okay.
And he goes through almost all the verses of the Isha Upanishad in that lecture. It's a wonderful.
Second chapter.
It's in Jnana Yoga, or volume 2 of complete works. If you have the 8 volumes or the 9 volumes, it's in volume 2, or it's in the Jnana Yoga. That's which is often many people have it as a separate book also. Jnana Yoga. God in Everything, it's called. And so it's a perfect commentary on the Upanishad. Yes, good. So it's wonderful to see all of you. Some of you I'm seeing after a long time, and some of you I haven't seen before, but I'm very happy to meet you. And some of you I saw just yesterday or this morning. But anyhow, good. And in all, we'll try to see, let us try for the next day to see all beings in the self, and the self in all beings.
I will see in the hornets now. I have to kill some hornets.
You have to go. Naran already took care of the yellow jackets here. Yeah, we see the selves in the hornets and then we kill them also.
I have just one off-beat question. We say Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Yeah.
So what third is Ihi means? Does it mean?
Each time is Shantihi, but because in the Sandhi, the way we pronounce it, when the Visarga is followed by Sha, it kind of gets swallowed up. But if you listen closely, you'll find it there. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It's there actually. And of course the pronunciation of Sanskrit is also a big subject of debate.
I think you just kind of put force on the last.
But it's there, the Visarga, which is if it comes at the end of a word, at the end of a verse, say then it's fully pronounced like that. Otherwise it's become like it's Purnamadaha, Purnamidam. But when it's chanted Purnamadah, Purnamidam, it just becomes a little air. Purnamadah, Purnamidam. But if you pronounce each one separately, Purnam, Adaha, Purnam, Idam.
One more thing, as you pointed out that he's a Sanskrit scholar, so I don't know what's your name, sir?
Naren.
Naren. So the issue is essentially in Sanskrit, there's a Ram, but it's written R-A-M-A, and people say Rama, Krishna, like that. So Swami Swahananji told me one time, I forgot unfortunately, that it was some conference in which they decided, because A is in Sanskrit is in many ways, so they put that particular way of writing.
You mean the diacritical marks? Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah, how to write Sanskrit in English,
Yes.
because Sanskrit has 50 letters,
Yeah.
more or less, depending on how you count them, and English has only 26. So how do you write Sanskrit in English? So, right, there's now a generally accepted convention, scholarly convention, about how to represent the 50 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet using 26 letters. And so they do it in two ways. One is by using diacritical marks, like a little line over the A, it becomes A.
Yeah.
Without the line, the macron it's called, it's an A. And similarly with E and E, or U and U. And then certain letters are actually indicated by double letters. So you have to know the system or you won't know. So you have is B. The Bha is BH. So that you have to know. If you know the system, then it actually makes sense. And Sanskrit scholars should be able to read fluently in both English with diacritical marks and Sanskrit letters. But it's exceedingly difficult to read Sanskrit if you don't use the diacritical marks, because there are so many words that are similar, but where just a slight difference in whether it's a short vowel or a long vowel will completely change the meaning. Like the word Shraddha, which means that whole orientation of our life towards divinity, that faith and respect and love and humility and all of that. And Shraddha means a certain funeral rituals that we do. And if you don't put the diacritical marks, then it's spelled exactly the same way in English. It will cause great confusion. So I love diacritical marks.
I think he said some conference in 1926 or something.
Could very well be, yes. So I think we should let the people who have been here a long time and ready to go home,
Yes.
we should let them go. And you can have a little chit chat and some prasad. There's prasad fruit from morning offering, and I'll put my mask back on. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Mam Mritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us unto light. From death, lead us to immortality. Om King